All right, home inspections. Home inspections are a pretty common contingency within the offer, and that is essentially what it sounds like. It's a home inspection. You'll have to talk to each home inspector when you hire them. Some of them charge extra to look at outbuildings, and they'll charge. There might be a different charge for age of home, things like that. So everyone has a little bit different pricing. So you'll want to discuss with them if there's things that you want covered that maybe are not within what they're normally do. Anyway, so on to the home inspection. The home inspection is going to be due within the first 15 days of your offer being accepted. So as soon as you get it accepted, you're going to want to call somebody. They have to be a Wisconsin licensed home inspector. Unfortunately, it cannot be your cousin who's a contractor, your dad, anything like that, because that will not meet the contingency guidelines. It has to be somebody who is licensed home inspector in the state of Wisconsin. So that home inspector is going to come into the house and they are going to do their evaluation. If you want to be there with them, then generally most inspectors are okay with that for like the last half hour, maybe hour of the home inspection, having you stop by and they'll kind of go through anything that they saw or any concerns, but work that out with them again. So once they do that home inspection, within usually 48 to 72 hours, they will send a report. Most of them will send it to both of us. Some of them will send it just to you and you'll need to forward that to me. At that point, you and I will go through it and kind of look and see what's on there. So I want you to keep in mind what a home inspector lists as a defect and what the Wisconsin offer to purchase lists as a defect are just slightly different. The things you and I are going to look for are anything that basically is going to harm the inhabitants of the home, or anything that will dramatically reduce the value of the home if it's not cured or remedied. So we're going to go through that, look for those things. So your report might have, things such down to the point of, hey, your toilet seat squeaks, or hey, it doesn't have the right drain, over time, instead of having I don't know what it's called, but where you have the switch that kind of holds the water in the bathtub, those break down and then people just kind of go with the plugs that they just plug in there. That will actually come up back on your home inspection report saying that it should be repaired. But in reality, it's really not going to be a defect, and it's not going to hurt the people in the home, and it's not going to affect the value. But that will be on your report. So we want to be diligent and pick out the things that truly will, like I said, affect that value or cause harm, such as a leaky roof, or if the foundation's bad, maybe there is a exposed wires or something like that. So those are the things we're going to want to address, whether that is either the seller fixing them or the seller offering a credit and then you can fix them and hire the contractors after close. And some of that's going to depend too on your loan, because certain loans we can't have certain defects, such as live wires or a leaky roof. So each case will be individual, but you and I will discuss that, and I can help guide you on what the best thing to do is. So when you get their report, like I said, we're going to look at it. We're going to discuss. We have two options at that point. We can issue an amendment. An amendment is essentially where we go back to negotiation. That's giving each party an option to accept the terms, renegotiate the terms. So we issued an amendment with A, B, C, and D that we want fixed, okay? The seller then responds and says, yes, I will fix A, B, C, and D. Or they respond with their own amendment. They're like, I'll fix A, C, and D, but I'm not doing B, okay? We then respond with yes or blah, blah, blah. So that can go back and forth until we agree. Again, we have to keep it within that 15 days. The second option we have is to issue a notice. A notice is kind of like, think of it as an ultimatum, maybe, where an amendment opens negotiation. Amendment is kind of like do it or. So the two times we use a notice is generally if somebody sees their home inspection report and they're like, nope, I'd rather not continue. However, if the seller agrees to fix all of these things, then I will continue. So you don't get an instant out because if the seller has the right to cure, we have to issue that notice and allow them the time to respond to that. The other time I would issue a notice is if we are getting down to the wire for our 15 days for that contingency, and I don't want it to expire. And then that contingency becomes satisfied. So I would then draft a notice and kind of just put the same things on there as we discussed for an amendment, and that kind of buys us a little bit more time. That contingency will not satisfy at that 15 days because I issued that notice. So each kind of explain that a little more. Every contingency will have a deadline, okay? And if we do not satisfy that before that deadline, then it will automatically satisfy, and then there's nothing more we can do. So my job is to make sure we don't miss those deadlines. And your job is to respond when I say, hey, we got to do this kind of quickly, because there will be a lot of moving parts, especially in the first 3 weeks. And then it'll kind of slow down. You have a little lag for a little bit, but usually the first 3 weeks is going to be a lot. So we will need to communicate as much as necessary to kind of make sure we don't miss those stuff, because I don't want you to breach your contract by missing a deadline. So again, the home inspection, and then if let's say the seller, we issue a notice or we issue the amendment and they agree to cure things, they will then work on that stuff, and they have until 3 days before closing to finish that stuff, finish those items. There are some items that they might hire a contractor for, and there are some items that they can do themselves. The contract itself does not specify who has to do the work. It just says it has to be done in a workman-like manner. So they can't technically, just haphazardly do something. I mean, they need to put it back and cure it so that it is safe for the inhabitants and that it doesn't ruin the value. And generally receipts are provided, especially for any contractors that come in or any parts that they have to buy, and that goes to the title company for them to verify all that stuff. So in a nutshell, that's kind of your home inspection. I'm going to include 2 things that you can take a look at down in the attachments. And one of them is going to be kind of a flow sheet of, how the home inspection works. Like, if we do this, what's next? If we do this, what's next? Okay, so it's just kind of a flow. And again, you're not on your own. I'm going to explain all that to you, but sometimes people just need a little bit more of a visual. The other thing I'm going to include is what a home inspector can and cannot do. There are some things within the realm of their licensing they cannot do. They cannot pull out a refrigerator to look behind it. They cannot technically remove anything off a wall to look behind it. They can't move boxes to look behind them. In the middle of winter, they are not going to go on the roof because that's a safety issue. In the middle of summer, they're not going to turn your furnace on and check the heat. Just like in the winter, they're not going to turn the air conditioning on. So there are limits, but they'll explain that to you. But sometimes, again, if somebody has questions, it's better just to, kind of put that information out there. So in a nutshell, that is your home inspection. Okay.